Welcome, everybody. This is Hugh Massie, the chairman and founder of DNA Behaviour International. And today I'm delighted to be hosting another one of our identity interviews. And it's my great pleasure to have Chris Salem with me. And Chris is a very experienced leadership and sales coach. He's a keynote presenter, doing also a lot of work in the diversity area, helping businesses. So he's got a lot of experience. And he also has a not-for-profit that is about empowering fathers to work better with their sons and become stronger parents, so that the life cycle is not repeated in the parenting. So welcome, Chris.
Hugh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, it's absolutely fantastic. And I know everybody's going to be extremely motivated by you today. Engagers always bring to life the audience. So let's get going. So Chris, why don't you tell our listeners some things about your life and how you got to the place of being a leadership and sales coach?
Well, Hugh, it's all been based upon, this life journey, the experiences that I've accumulated, throughout my life. I'm 54 years old. And, for the first 30 years of my life, it wasn't really that pretty. It was a struggle. I can honestly say that the first 30 years of my life I didn't have an identity. I was codependent at the time. I was a perfectionist. I was struggling with 12 years of addiction. And I know that prior to that, I didn't have, growing up, and I didn't realize this until after. So I'm speaking in hindsight. I didn't have this strong connection with my dad. My dad was often busy traveling, making money, building a business. He grew up poor, and it was his goal to make money and be able to have the things that he never had when he was a child growing up. And as a result of it, I didn't realize it because I was growing up as a teenager. I was very angry. I was rebellious. And I didn't realize that I had been longing for this connection with my father. And I was always seeking his validation. Now, again, I didn't know all this. And when he didn't provide it to me, even when he was around, I would seek it out in other people. Now I realized where my codependency came from. So I grew up in a codependent home. I was a perfectionist because I learned that from my mother and my father that everything had to be perfect. You had to be the best at everything that you do. And as a result of it, put a lot of strain on me. And I became, in terms of my behavior and my communication, passive and aggressive. Now imagine There are people who are passive. There are people who are aggressive. Now, if you got people that are both, that can be quite confusing and exhausting to other people that are in your life and in, working with in business. So I was a pleaser and an enabler as on the passive side. And then I would have high expectations for myself and other people. And when they went unfulfilled, I would let you have it. And that was the aggressive side. And it really had a negative impact on my relationship. So I struggled keeping personal and business relationships. And I escaped that anger and that pain through 12 years of addiction. Had a strong sexual addiction, drugs, alcohol. And it was the defining moment for me was my father was 56 years old. He had been diagnosed with cancer, and they had given him a year and a half to live. He had stage 4 lung cancer. And I remember the day and a half before my father passed away, I still look at it as that he gave me the greatest gift I could ever ask for. Something he made up for all those years not being there for my brother and I, and even my mother. He couldn't talk because he was on morphine, but it was like he was looking at me and he was speaking to me through his eyes. And it was, and the message I got from it, and I still can't explain how I got this message, but I got the message, was that I'm sorry that I couldn't be the father that you wanted me to be. Because at that point, I didn't even understand any of this. I just knew I was angry and my life was out of control. But I didn't know any better. I did the best with what I knew.
Yeah.
But if I could do it all over again, I would. And I just want to let you know, don't go down the path that I did. I made a business for myself. I made money for myself, but I was miserable. And this is why, if I could do it all over again, and that like started to change, like a light bulb went off in my head. And I said, I've been chasing the almighty dollar up to this point. I had a great work ethic and I would make a lot of money and then I'd lose it because I would sabotage relationships as a result of it. And I began to say to myself, God, maybe I've been living a lie. Like, I'm not living, this is not my identity. The values that I operate from, they're probably my dad's. They're not mine. I did it because he would validate me if I did. And that was the defining moment for me, that I began to embark on a journey. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I was going to change my life around. And that led me down a path of learning how to get out of the problem into the solution, to resolve the root cause to limiting beliefs that had impacted my confidence, self-esteem, my ability to make better decisions, take calculated risks, follow through, and shifted my behavior and communication from being a codependent and a perfectionist to being interdependent and trusting the process, controlling what I have and what I know and focusing only there, and letting go of everything else beyond my control, letting the results be a byproduct in the moment of trusting that process. So I shifted my thinking from a fixed mindset, past and future, triggered by fear, to being to a growth mindset, being in the present moment. So I changed I implemented a daily routine and began to change my way of thinking, to become, to do, and have different and better results. And that's been the last 24 years of my life.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Chris, how old were you when you had that pivotal moment and your dad was dying and he made, in a way, the very key parenting statement? How old were you at that
I was
time?
30. I was 30 years old.
Yes. Okay. 30 years old. So yeah. So you'd already had some life experiences under your belt.
Yes.
And I suppose that 12 years was really that period of leaving college or leaving high school.
It started. I started to dabble in drugs and alcohol in high school. Well, even before, so probably when I was 13, 14, but it got progressively worse throughout, my college years and into my 20s.
And it does, I suppose it does bring out, if the father's not around, how it's much harder for boundaries to get set and for you to have the leadership in your life, and it transcends everything.
Yes.
And in a way, you're lucky he said what he said, and that you were strong enough, though, to pull yourself into line. Or did you have a coach? Did you go and get a coach or a therapist or some kind of life guide at that time to help you?
I did at the time. I did have some therapy, and I did a lot of this on my own. But I ended up bringing in some coaches and mentors 2 years after the fact. Once I started to really get into meditation and journaling and adopting a more early morning daily routine, when I began to think in the moment. So I began to hire a mentor or two that really played a major role in helping me keep accountable. And then the rest has been, just doing the work, and to this day, I've been doing my daily routine every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for almost 24 years. So it's that experience led me into becoming an executive coach, to being a corporate advisor trainer, to being the CEO, co-founder of Empowered Fathers in Action, utilizing these principles and this experience that I did, and how to apply it in everyday situations in people's personal lives, as well as in business, and how this impacts groups of people, whether if it's in business or in a family or a community or whatever the case may be.
And I think that's really where, what part of your message is really important for the listeners to understand. And I think, and probably for your clients as well, or prospective clients as well, is that as much as having a coach is someone to walk the journey with you, to be there, to be a sounding board is important. It's also important that you're capable and prepared to do the hard work yourself. And at 30 years old, you got stuck in there yourself, did reading, were prepared to challenge yourself, figure out how you're going to get out of the cycle and get to the next stage. This is not hire a coach and wave the magic wand and hope it all happens, which is so much of the time what people expect.
Yeah. And that was one thing, Hugh, that I learned. My whole life was expectations. And and now today, expectations are not even part of my vocabulary. I don't even acknowledge them. I live my life being focused, following a plan. I plan out my life and my business to what I know. And then whatever I don't know, I just include and plug it in like a new puzzle piece when it does come into my control. So I let the results that I seek in life and in my business or any situation be a result of that process. So I'm always looking to operate in the moment. I'm not in the past and the future, that's where expectations thrive. And then again, just in my opinion, go unfulfilled and just lead to more feeling frustrated, angry, more codependency. So I just changed my whole way of thinking around that. And then I, again, learned how that really impacted my personal relationships in a positive way with my role as a father. And then of course, my role as a executive coach, working with clients or working with groups of people.
In a way, a lot of that approach is sort of accepting your being and just, I think, not to use the cliche, but to be being in the moment.
Yes.
I think to have goals it's still important, but that doesn't necessarily mean expectation. It's certainly not entitlement.
Oh, yeah. I have goals. Oh, believe me, I break down, I got goals and then I break them down into, big, medium, small, little tasks and how they roll up every day, week, month, quarter, year to those bigger targets. So yeah, it's having goals, but being very specific and using words like will and desire, not want, need. Want and need means that putting the power outside of myself to control what I can control. And when things don't go my way, well, I got an excuse to back out. I will and desire keeps the control I can control, and I trust the process to allow the results be a byproduct of that. Yeah, I definitely am an advocate for laying down specific goals and breaking them down to the littlest level. Yet I approach it by trusting the process, not from expectation.
Yeah, and that was something that I noticed. It's interesting we got to that point that I noticed in your business DNA report. So just for our listeners, Chris is an engager, and you can tell from his smile and friendly nature. And talkative nature that he's a communicator, but underneath that, one of the very strong points for you, Chris, is being very what we call anchored, but that is also very process driven.
Yes,
and that's really in a lot of ways is the one of the strongest parts of your style, being very anchored, process driven. But also what we will call pioneering, and there's a lot of determination and follow through. And I think we've seen that today. But maybe just tell me a little bit about how you reacted to the business DNA when you got back the report after completing the assessment for 10 minutes online. How you felt about it and what it's said to you.
Well, I mean, I always looked at myself as definitely someone that, joy in creating an experience. I'm involved in a lot of influencer groups. My radio show is on the Voice America Influencers channel. So I always looked at myself as an influencer, someone that inspires people to, take whatever they're listening to, whatever that compelling content that they're, and what it means to him or her, and what they get to decide what to do with it. But when it came back as an engager, I thought about it and said, yeah, well, engaging, that's what it's about. An engager is someone that is not out there just to persuade someone or sell somebody on an idea. It's someone that really operates from, their core values, the values that represent you, not what you've been led to believe. And for me, that's transparency, honesty, and integrity.
Yeah.
And if I can communicate in a way from those values with compelling content that inspires someone to get to decide what that means to them, and what they decide to take action with on, then to me, that is my opinion, the definition of an engager, that someone that brings somebody in to be involved in this experience, to be involved in this process, to do something that could alter or enhance their quality of life, their career, their business, whatever the case may be. Because I've learned over the years, no one is going to do it for you. There are great coaches, great, consultants, mentors. But if you got this, again, I don't even like that word, expectation that they're going to do it for you and solve your problems, well, you're going to keep looking for that person and that entity that just does this, because it doesn't. You learn from their example, you learn from their resources, and through their guidance for you to do it yourself. It's the same thing even in any type of situation, solving a problem. If the person you're solving the problem with, if they don't do their part, well, they're just not going to get the results they seek. So for me, an engager plays an important role in doing that. And it's something when I got it back, Hugh, it really made sense. It brought everything full circle of just everything that I've been doing. And it was so true. And now ever since I got that, I go around when people ask me, what represents you? And I say, I'm an engager. That's what DNA behavior came back with. And it really reinforces that.
Yeah, but you're an engager, I think, who's obviously very mature in it and focused on using open communication, but in a very focused way to draw people out, and to get them to be the best of who they are. A lot of engagers fall down in the fact that they're great at talking and networking, but if they don't have a purpose, then it's not very good, and it becomes, to be honest, it can become very fluffy.
Yes,
and it's knowing how to use those engager talents very well, because it's one of the greatest gifts that you could ever get. When I look at sort of the drivers of life performance, to me, there are two big ones. They're your ability to engage people, which is building relationships as well, tied into that. But then the other part's confidence. But if you've got the ability to engage people, and a lot of people, then you can do very well and certainly expand your world out, which is exciting. So just tell me also, Chris, a little bit about sort of your pioneering drive. I think we've heard some of it today, but where you're trying to get to now in let's say you're 54 years old. You and I are pretty similar in age. Where are you trying to get to in the next stage of your life? How you want to position yourself?
Yep.
Even elevate yourself further. We've always
it's always progress and motion. There's no destination. It's progress and motion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say, if you look at the underlying theme, Hugh, with the mission and the purpose that I chose to live my life and bring to the world each and every day, is that we all have the capability of resolving the root cause to our limited beliefs. If we can learn how to do that and really identify with what our core values are that are true to you, allowing you to be who you are, and then maximizing those strengths that you have, not the weaknesses, but the strengths, and how you can then do that in an interdependent way to bring value to a marriage, to any type of relationship, to as a parent, to people in your community, people in your church, people that you work with, that work for you, or in your business, and to your clients. So I'm all about creating interdependent structures where people can lead by example, be the example for others, and be resourceful, not just doing for people, and learning how to communicate effectively, being specific, clear, and concise, not based on assumption and speculation and judgment, but being very specific, clear, and concise without judgment, and be able then from that to build a more interdependent environment, whether if that's in the workplace, in your family, in your community, where people can really not only understand their role and duties in that situation, respecting their own, but also respecting others. And how can we do this at a bigger level to really make a difference in whatever that situation is? So these principles I bring into when I train and coach and consult with Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, one-on-one with corporate and business leaders and entrepreneurs. And of course, in my role as a CEO, co-founder at Empower Fathers Action, how we work with fathers and parents, this is women too, how to create interdependent family structures free from limiting beliefs.
Yeah, so a big word in there is interdependence.
Yeah.
And so you've built that into, your belief systems, the practices that you're teaching, and the place that you want to get people to. But what brought you to the importance of interdependence? So I think this is important for people to understand.
Well, I think for myself, it goes back to that experience, Hugh. My personal experience was I grew up codependent. I had a mother, wonderful mother, but she was a perfectionist and everything had to be done perfect. And if it wasn't, she would do it for you.
Yeah.
So a lot of times there were a lot of things I didn't have to do because my mother would do it for me. And thus, while that sounded that was a good thing at the time, it really wasn't, because it didn't allow me to really, how could I get better at something, or trust myself that I could have the confidence to do that I could, and that I could learn and grow and solve problems. So these things were problems for me growing up, especially when I became an adult and I started working in the real world, because I was codependent. And so being a codependent and a perfectionist, now going on that complete opposite polar side of everything, is interdependence. And that is being independent. Yet what the difference between independent and interdependent is, you are being a resource and an example for others daily, excuse me, through your communication, through your behavior, through your attitude, through your emotions, and through your action, for people to do for themselves. People who are independent may do those things, but they're not sharing through example and not being resourceful to help people do for themselves. They're just keeping it for themselves. They don't maybe care. So that's where interdependency comes in. And this is, my opinion, what can solve a lot of the issues and problems that you have in marriages, issues that where parenting, there's issues with parenting, issues in communities, in businesses, politics, the list goes on. We have a long way to go, because again, we've been repeating these patterns for centuries, ever since man has stepped foot on this earth. Nonetheless, it's my commitment to be that voice through speaking at industry events, speaking at personal development events, working both the nonprofit and the for-profit side to help bring this message out, to create awareness and for people to, decide what that means to them and to take action with it.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that you've landed the plane on interdependence, because when you look, and it's no accident, when you look at your life, and this is what I just see looking in for the few minutes I've had with you today, Chris, a codependent relationship with your mother, but really a very independent relationship with your dad, in the sense that maybe you weren't independent, but you were forced to be, because he was very independent, going out there, sort of living a lot of life by himself, probably outside the home, working, making money. And it wasn't in a way until his last moments in life that some interdependence came, when he shared with you, because a lot of ways, the way I understand interdependence is there's got to be a relationship involved, or a series of relationships, or a web of relationships. And in a way, we've got our own ecosystem of our own life that's made up of interconnected relationships that all have to be in harmony in some way for you to survive. You could, in business, it's good to have, you don't have to maybe have a business partner, but you've got to have relationships that work. You've got to have the right relationship with your wife. If that's codependent, it's problematic somewhere as well.
Yes.
But it can't be too independent for obvious reasons either.
No, no, not at all. I mean, like I said, people ask me, does your wife make you happy? I said, I make myself happy. My wife makes herself happy. We choose the happiness for ourselves, but when we come together, we can enhance that level of happiness to another level. I don't need my wife to make me happy. She doesn't need me to make her happy. When people get caught up in that, like, I'm seeking a partner that will do these things for me to complete me, you're just setting yourself up for a codependent relationship and a problem down the road, because that person is not going to be able to fulfill that. And people take that intentionally. It's that you're doing something to them when they don't even realize what they're doing, and yet you take it that way. So this is where if we could take ownership of our role and duties in whatever situation that is and own that and be the example and be a resource for others to do the same, then when we come together, we can do bigger and better things. Whether, again, if it's a marriage, if it's your role as a parent with a child, in your community, and then in any size business, it's regardless. People are people. And I'm just a strong advocate that if people can get out of their limiting beliefs and repeating the same patterns that they've been taught for centuries, that they can begin to turn their lives around, and really we can make this world a better place in a more peaceful light than it has been.
I think a big message in here for the listeners, and it's one that I'm going to reinforce more just generally, and tie it back to you, Chris, is the need for people to build an interdependent life, which means having interdependent relationships, whether that's at home, in your business, in a team, in the community, because it's the only way that you're going to be able to grow exponentially in your life freely.
Yes.
And for the other people that are in your life, they can grow with you or to their level. Everybody's happy, because the world can't just be about you. It's got to be, and I'm not meaning just you, Chris, but to our listeners, it's also you've got to be in harmony with your relationships, and in a way, you must be interdependent or living an independent life to do that. And so I'm glad we explored that, because I think that is really so foundational to what you are bringing to the table and bringing to the world, in your identity, not just as, I know, one part of your identity is being an engager, but I think helping people build an interdependent life is really potentially a very big thing.
Yeah. Hugh, and I always say, it always starts with the family. Think of the family as the foundation of everything, the foundation for any type of relationship in the world. Like you said, what goes on, if you can do this in your family, then you're going to be able to do it in your community. When you can do it with your community, you're going to do it in your business, regardless if you work for someone or you have your own business. So again, it's not something you do, in one segment of your life and then do something. It's that consistency daily, that discipline and consistency daily to do this in every role and duty that you have in your life. And that's where I feel like these changes for growth happen. And then people begin to kind of pick up on it subconsciously and begin to kind of where a light bulb goes off in their head, like it did for me. And that, I'm so grateful for that. God forbid my dad died the next day, but that was his parting gift. And, I don't even know if he even realized what he did, because he was not conscious, but nonetheless, it changed the quality of my life forever as a result. Because I don't know what would have happened to my life up to that point. I could have burned out in so many ways, because I had no direction, no clue at that point.
But in a way, that's just a gift from the universe. And he in a way, he did what he was meant to do for your life. And that happened right at a moment that in a way shook you up. And look what you've gone and done with it.
Yes.
And how much better the world is. Yes, it's sort of in some ways sad that you had to endure some of those things. But, you don't rise out and become great if you haven't had to endure something and then be resilient to deal with it. And I know that's sort of very rationalist, but that it sort of is what it is. And, here you are today teaching and leading many people through that experience. And so, I suppose let's be thankful to your dad that he could at least give you that message.
Yes, absolutely.
And to your mum as well, because I
think my mother's a saint. My mother's raised my brother and I. She was a wonderful parent. I respect my mother highly, and again, no parent is ever going to be perfect. No. Nor am I. I learned, thank God I learned all this before I had children. But even I have to, it's always progress in motion. I'm always learning. I'm always growing, always evolving, because that's what life's about. It's about the journey. It's about the process. It's not about the destination. Because even though you hit these milestones, you hit them, you learn, you celebrate, and then you move on to the next one. And you just keep going into wherever we go after this. I can't explain that, but that's how I choose to live my life. And
I think it is about the process, and then just work smart with it. And things don't always happen on the day that you expect them to happen, and you just keep on trucking. And then you look back and see, gee, I accomplished a lot of things. And if you own up to that, then the world can be fantastic. So, Chris, just as we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? Are there any books that people should read, shows they should watch?
I would just say that, there's a lot of great books out there. I know one of the books that I really enjoyed, it's been out for over a year now, Atomic Habits by James Clear. I'm a big fan of habits, because I've been doing it for 24 years. Matter of fact, I outline my process of habits in my book, Master Your Inner Critic, Resolve the Root Cause, Create Prosperity. So I'm a big proponent of that. There's so many books I could list, Hugh, but I would say that one's current, and really, really enjoyed that book. And I would say the one thing I would leave for the audience, it's a statement that I share with all my business clients, as well as people we work with on the nonprofit side with the Power Fathers in Action. And you have to, when you hear it, but you got to apply it. You have to live it. It's give without expectation.
Yeah.
From empathy and kindness, because again, that's interdependent. That's mean you're being the example, being a resource, not pleasing and enabling, which is codependent. Give without expectation, receive without resistance. Many people have a hard time receiving. Again, that's where limiting beliefs come into play. And when I say that, that can mean money, that can mean a compliment, an acknowledgement. It can be just about anything that can help you to fill your cup. So now you have more to give. So it's like a boomerang. If you keep giving and you're not filling your cup, then you're really not giving anything of value. So it's learning how to receive when it comes back from wherever it comes from without resistance, not questioning it. And when I adopted that term several years ago, it changed the quality of my life, and I live it each and every day. And I always like to share it with, in this case, with your audience here.
I think that's very powerful. And, a lot of people talk about giving, but I think the receiving without resistance hit a chord with me big time. And maybe another day you and I'll have a conversation about
Absolutely.
Because that's an area that I perhaps, even myself, even though I've got a coach, I could be coached on. So, but thank you, Chris. This has been fantastic, very enlightening today, and let's help more people build interdependent lives.